Hello and welcome to An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about the 2008 animated film Delgo. In Delgo we meet the winged Norin people. They were forced to leave their own world after the depletion of its natural resources, and they have resettled on the planet of Jamora, which is already inhabited by a ground-dwelling species known as the Lochni, who generously shared their planet with the Norin. But not all the Norin are as grateful as they should be. Led by would-be conqueror Sedessa, many of them believe in the innate superiority of their own species over the flightless natives of this country, and chafe at being forced to share the planet's bounty with these inferiors. Sedessa and her co-conspirators scheme to engineer a war between the two peoples, and to seize power for themselves in the process. And their first step in this plan is to kidnap the Norin princess Kyla, and frame an orphaned Lochni named Delgo as the culprit. Young Delgo is thrown into prison for his alleged crime, and in order to avert a devastating war, he must find a way to escape, rescue the princess, and reveal Sedessa's secret conspiracy. So Delgo took 7 years and $40 million to make, and apparently averaged two viewers per session in its opening weekend. It went on to be to recoup less than 2% of its costs, becoming one of the biggest financial flops of 2008. Now, a big factor in its failure was that the film was made outside the studio system and had a small marketing budget, and just would have struggled to find audience, probably in the best of circumstances. The question is, did it deserve an audience? Well, honestly, probably not. Let's talk about why. So animation work began on Delgo in 2001, a full 7 years before its eventual release. Long production cycles are not unusual on animated films. Even with CGI, animating a film is a long and expensive process. The problem for Delgo is that for all that $40 million sounds like a lot of money and is a lot of money, when you're talking about a 7-year film project involving hundreds of people, it's not a big budget. For comparison, Pixar's Wall-E, which also came out in 2008, cost more than 4 times that much. Even Disney's first animated Tinkerbell film, which was part of their direct-to-video business, or direct-DVD business as it would have been then, ultimately cost more than Delgo did to make. The perhaps inevitable result of Delgo's long production time and comparatively low budget compared to its competitors is that its animation is simply not to the standard of those other films. Entering the cinematic lists against Wall-E, Kung Fu Panda, and Madagascar 2, all of which came out that same year, makes it look notably stiff and drab in comparison. The visual flair is a key first impression of any animated feature, and on that front, Delgo simply doesn't deliver. Second thing I wanted to talk about. Delgo's filmmakers made much of their desire to stand out from the crowd by telling a true human story in a non-human world. And their main plotline is more pitched towards epic fantasy adventure than is typical of most animated features. And that plot is also underpinned with some relatively mature concepts, like confronting personal and structural racism. This is not a film where every good guy is immediately nice and tolerant and only evil people have prejudices. Our hero, Delgo himself, must struggle with his resentment of the Norin for past grievances. He, has to deal with his own structural racism. Unfortunately, despite that, and despite our film is different rhetoric and putting together the basic building blocks from which to deliver that difference, the movie ultimately lacks the courage of its convictions. The script desperately throws in every cliched slapstick animation spot you can think of, presumably in an attempt to pander to the kids. And look, that kind of thing was very successful for the Madagascar films, but the difference is that Madagascar 1 and 2 both knew exactly what kind of films they were, and they went in 110% on the zany antic nonsense for every moment of their runtimes. Delgo tries to tell a more nuanced and mature story while also honking out second-rate gags like some kind of constipated clown. And it just doesn't work. It jars. It doesn't gel. And it is an unsatisfying experience to watch because of it. Finally, I think they misspent their money. Yep, they had a relatively light budget, but they compounded that by insisting on casting recognisable, presumably expensive, live-action names for its voice cast. And I don't mean the leads. For one thing, Freddie Prinze Jr. probably isn't that expensive, and he has done voice acting before, but the stunt casting goes deep in the cast. Delgo's parents, who are on screen for less time than Anna and Elsa's folks from Frozen, they're played by Burt Reynolds and Kelly Clarkson. General Shady, a character so minor he doesn't even feature in the film's plot summary on Wikipedia, is played by Swedish soccer star Zlatan Ibrahimovic. The cast also includes Louis Gossett Jr., Val Kilmer, Malcolm McDowell, Michael Clarke Duncan, and Eric Idle. The end result? Likely a lot of money spent on what is ultimately pretty mediocre work. Being an on-screen performer and voice acting are not the same disciplines, and skill in one does not guarantee skill in the other. Some people can do both. Some people can only do one or the other. Clearly, there were a number of people involved in this production who were not well experienced in and suited to voice acting, and the voice acting is extremely uneven, and almost certainly cost a lot more money than it needed to, because casting for names, not for actual ability as a voice actor. So that is basically 3 strikes against Delgo. I couldn't recommend checking it out, even when I am kind of like one of those people who's like, animated films can be more than just kids' fare, and it's great to see somebody trying to do something new. It just doesn't work here. So that's Delgo. Next time, an Italian effort to cash in on the success of Hollywood biblical epics like The Ten Commandments, the 1960 release David and Goliath. But that's next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.